All right, if we could get settled. We had a traffic jam outside the door, and we'll settle up here in just seconds as the rest of the council gets seated. Okay, thank you all for being here tonight. Tonight's our June 2nd meeting at 6 o'clock, and welcome to City Hall. Apologize for the late delay. Like I say, we had somewhat of a traffic jam outside the doors tonight. Before we have tonight's meeting, we'll call on Rick Prather for a prayer, and then please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, at this point in time, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome again, everyone. We'll have roll call, please.
Branch.
Here.
Bray.
Here.
Costellas.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Hussey.
Here.
Mahalovich. Here. Prather.
Here.
Scrivener.
Here. Before I forget, next we'll call on the adoption of the agenda, and I know we have a resolution, I think, to add, and that's 2014-11. Is that correct, Mr. Carlos?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add Resolution 2014-11 to be read after 2014-10.
All right. Any issue with that? If not, we'll just do that as is. Any other changes to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. First, I know we have some scouts that are here tonight that I see. I see Mr. Landwehr back there. Thank you for being here. If the scouts would please come forward to the podium, along with your troop leader. Since Eric's taller, I'm going to let him bend down the mic and make sure it's on. I think that button's on the back. Bill says it's already on. Welcome, young men. Eric, can you tell me where these young men are from, and then individually you can tell us your names and what you might be working on tonight while you're here.
We have 6 scouts working on the Citizenship in the Community merit badge. 5 of the scouts are brand new Boy Scouts now. They've been in Cub Scouts for 5 years, and they just graduated up to Boy Scouts. When was it, guys? March? Yeah. And so they're working on a merit badge. This is one requirement. Learn about your community. City government is one option they chose to do to witness a city council meeting and witness issues being discussed and debated. And so they're here to learn about that. And you guys want to introduce yourselves?
My name is Thomas Beck.
My name is Jeremy Rice. My name is Joey Kramer.
My name is Dietrich Bartels.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
My name is Dietrich Bartels. My name is Nathaniel Landwehr. My name is James Rice.
All right, gentlemen, if you could come forward, please. I have a small token from our city. They're actually our city coins.
And these boys are from Troop 6 IC, Immaculate Conception.
Thank you very much for coming. Thanks for coming tonight. Good luck on all your efforts. Are you guys all going to be Eagle Scouts? Hopefully. If you're going to date any of my daughters, that's the number one deal. I kind of get you in the door, so to speak. It's been kind of light so far. Luckily, they don't watch these meetings, so I'm okay. But Eric, thank you for what you do, and guys, thank you. I know that it's not a school night, so you don't have to stay for the whole meeting. But please watch and be attentive as we continue on. Next, we have in our miscellaneous agenda items, Mr. Drew Hilpert's going to give us a timeline for our vacancy in the 2nd Ward. As you can see, we have an empty seat, an empty name badge here. Mr. Sean Schulte has moved to the 5th Ward. Wish him well in his future endeavors. And Drew, if you could tell us how we're going to fill that spot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The process for filling a vacant seat is laid out in Chapter 12-18. At the next council meeting, which will be June 16th, council members may nominate one individual to fill a vacancy. The nomination must be seconded. I think there was maybe a misquote in the paper saying that every councilman must nominate someone, but that is not true. You may nominate one person. Then on June 23rd, well, from June 17th to June 20th, so the 4 days after the nomination, the individuals who have been nominated and wish to serve must complete a declaration of candidacy, and that is with Phyllis's office. Then on June 23rd, which will be the following Monday after the nomination, we'll have a public session here in this room from 4 to 6. That'll be a chance for the public to meet the candidates, and we'll have a question and answer session for any individuals who want some public answers, and that'll start at 5 o'clock. Then the next council meeting thereafter, which will be July 7th, an election will be held at the beginning of the council meeting to appoint someone. The process for that will be that the mayor will call for a roll call vote. We'll start this probably at the first item of business. The mayor will call for a roll call vote, and the council will announce their choice by stating the last name of the person they want to agree to. And the mayor will continue to tally those names until someone gets a majority. So if it's a plurality at first, we'll just keep going until we pick someone as a majority candidate. That person will then be seated will be sworn in immediately and be seated right thereafter and finish the meeting out. So I'm happy to answer any questions. So for the folks in the public, if you're interested in being a councilman, please contact your councilman and see if they will nominate you.
Okay. Any other questions of the council of Drew on those proceedings? I'm going to ask that I'm not sure how this would work on the 23rd. I know I'm not going to be in town that night. How would we normally do that? Would the mayor pro tem step in for that? It's an open house. It's questions, or should we get a third party, so to speak?
It's really more of an open house.
Okay.
Staff can certainly run the question and answer session, although the council is certainly highly invited, since you're actually the voters in this, to come and show up. But
Okay.
the meeting itself will be just basically people meander around and ask questions of the candidates till 5 o'clock, and we'll put them up here and allow folks to sign in and ask questions.
So will there be a set amount of questions or certain questions that all candidates answer then? Or?
Well, in the past, I believe, anyone else can correct me though, we would just allow the public to ask any questions they have of the candidates in a more open forum so that everyone can hear the answers. Certainly if the council has questions they would like to ask, staff can get a list of those and ask all the candidates as well.
I would like to appoint Steve Kroll, our city administrator, to oversee that meeting. And Rick, I know you have obviously close ties to that ward because it's your ward. I know you had shared with me some of the questions that you wanted to see answered by those candidates. I'd like to see all those answered that night, or at least ask of those candidates, and Steve could do that if you don't mind. All right. Any other questions on that deal? Bob?
I guess I'm going to show my ignorance here, but you used the word I can't even say the word now. Say it. You know what it is. It starts with a P.
Plurality? Right.
Plurality.
So if somebody gets 3 votes, somebody gets 2, somebody gets 3.
Well, I understand, but what's the number that it takes? Just a majority?
It's a majority of the councilmen remaining, so it'll be 5.
So
If there's 9 here on July
True.
2nd.
That's
Is
correct.
that the date, right?
That's correct. July 7th.
July
So
7th, my
it's
bad.
not a majority of votes, it's a majority of the council.
So if there's...
Right.
Someone couldn't be elected with 3 votes. In
You're
other words,
correct.
if
It
they
is a
split
majority of the
that into-
council, so the remaining council members, so it would have to be 5 even if someone was missing.
If there were, just to play a lot of math with you, since I know you're really good at math,
Yeah. Right.
if we have 3 other council members that are gone, and there's a total of 6, and it's the votes 3-3, do I break a tie or not?
It wouldn't matter because you could never get to 5
Oh, okay.
on a 3-3 vote. If it were somehow where you would make the 5th vote, if there was 8, it's 4-4, then you wouldn't break the tie.
That's the only
That's
way.
an interesting question.
That's the only way.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess so.
All right, because you never know. I know it's vacation time, and a lot of people have different things going on. So, any other questions on this, gentlemen? Drew, I appreciate your hard work behind the scenes on getting all this together. And there again, we do wish Sean the best in his future endeavors. No public hearings this evening, no appointments by the mayor. Presentations from staff, consultants, and invited guests. First, we have Mr. Bill Betts. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you all are aware, at the end of each year, the city has an independent auditor that comes in and reviews our operations. For about the past 15 years or so, I think there was a 1-year hiatus in there. Evers & Company has been doing the audit for the city. Tonight we have Dale Siebenek and Joe Moore, and they're going to do a short presentation to the council about the FY 2013 audit. I think Joe's going to do a majority of the speaking because Dale has a voice problem.
You don't want to show them your voice problem?
I wouldn't make it through the whole thing, and I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. It was a
So we
gift
can-
from my granddaughter is what it was, so this is kind of remnants of it. So Joe's going to make the presentation because I would not make it through it.
Do you also do Elmer Fudd?
I don't think so.
Some people will just do anything to get out of public speaking, is
That's
what I
right.
say about that.
Well, welcome
Well, thank you.
very much for being here.
Thank
Normally, just see it at Rotary.
Yes. Okay. So, obviously, this is Evers & Company. For the last, I don't know how many years, the City of Jefferson Finance Department has applied for and received what is referred to as the certification for their comprehensive annual financial report. So the Governmental Finance Officer Association has a program whereby political subdivisions can submit their financial statements to this organization, and it's a high level of requirements that have to be met by the government in order to receive that certification. So as a credit to your finance department, they have received this award, and the 13 report has been submitted for that also, and we would anticipate it would be received. The next 3 slides, I know this is really hard to read, but it actually, oops, what did I do? Okay. Okay, so this is our opinion on the city's financial statements. It actually takes us 3 pages to tell you what our opinion is. It's highly regulated how this is drafted. But if you read that, I'm assuming you all got your own copy of the audit report. So if you go through that letter, it specifies what the city's responsibilities are and what our responsibilities are. When you get down to, the main paragraph, I think, in the audit report is when we tell you that we feel like that the city's financial statements are in fact materially presented. So that is an unqualified opinion, it doesn't get any better than that in auditor's lingo. So we'll just talk about a few highlights. We're going to focus primarily on the general fund, obviously funded primarily by tax revenues, so that you don't have as much control over that fund as you might say for your wastewater fund, which is charges for services based. So this slide shows you the original budget, the final budget, and then the actual amounts. So as you can see, the revenues actually came in under both the original budget and the final budget, primarily due to the sales tax revenues. Expenditures came in under both the original budget and the final budget. There was definitely an effort to hold expenses down when the city realized that the revenue sources were not going to come in as anticipated. Other financial sources and uses, these are, there's about $290,000 of proceeds from sale of capital assets. There was about a $37,000 transfer in, and then the rest of that was transfers out or subsidies. I have more specific numbers on that for you. So the transit subsidy for 2013 was $715,294. Compared to in 2012, the subsidy was $1,239,186. The transit fund is, in fact, one fund that is not charged with an administrative chargeback, we call it. So there's administrative duties performed primarily in finance that obviously affects all the funds. The procedures that they do impacts all funds. So there are some funds that receive what's called a chargeback for that department to recoup some of their expenditures. Because of the subsidies that have been made to the transit fund, there has not been an administrative chargeback, because it would be like you're making you're charging them expense, and then you would in essence increase the subsidy coming back. So then it nets down to change in fund balance, which was positive of $287,917. So that gets you to an ending fund balance in the general fund of the $5.5 million. One way to kind of analyze the extent of that subsidy is if you would compare it to operating expenses or expenditures of the general fund. So for 2013, the operating expenditures for the operating fund were $29,720,000. So you divide that by, if that happens evenly over 12 months, then it's approximately $2.5 million a month. So that tells us that, in the chance, which it would never happen, but if all revenue sources stopped, the city could operate their general fund for about 2 months. That's how you can correlate the effectiveness of the fund balance. Whoop. Okay, so this shows you the revenues by source for 2013 and 2012. As you can see, the sales and other use taxes are the most significant change from one year to the next. And then this is a comparison of expenditures from 2012 and 2013. So obviously you held your expenditures down by, or you held them lower than 12 by $3 million, which, as we talked about, was needed to be done because of the sales tax revenues. This is just a graphical chart of, so you can see your sales tax versus your property taxes. So obviously sales tax is very, very important funding source to the city. And this just compares how the fund balance has changed between from 2009 to 2013. So obviously 2011 was a good year, or the best year on the chart. 12 dipped a little bit, 13 rebounded some. I think that's, no. So here's a chart on the subsidies. So obviously that's kind of been up and down. Obviously it depends upon, it's typically the subsidies have been in the transit fund and the airport fund. So it's dependent upon the needs of those funds to be able to meet their operating obligations. Okay, that's the end of that. I guess one more quick comment. If you read through your report, there is included in the report a schedule of federal expenditures, which for the 2013 year totaled a little over $10 million. So that represents funding from the federal government. Obviously, typically you have to apply for that funding in order to be eligible for it. There are very stringent regulations that are issued by those different government agencies on how what we have to do to audit those funds. There's a variety of compliance issues that have to be that the city has to comply with, and so that's another big part of our audit process because of the size of the grant funding received. Questions?
Any other questions of Dale or his great ventriloquist here today? Bob.
Thank you for the report, by the way. I did read through it. It's a long report, but I did read through it. I do have a question. You said, unlike other accounts, that there is no administrative charge back to transit. Could you tell us what that, if there was, if we did make one based on the revenues or however that charge is applied, do you know what that would be?
I can give you an idea because what's
Just
going
an
to
estimate.
happen for the new budget. Oops. You want to tell him?
I can give you.
Okay. I mean, I was going to tell him what you told me.
Okay. Dale was gonna. We had had some talks with Dale about doing that for both the transit and the airport to kind of show the true cost, because for parks and wastewater and all those, we do have the chargebacks. So one of the things we're planning to do in the 2015 budget is go ahead and add the chargebacks into there. We'll move the money in, move the money out. You know, like Joe had mentioned. We will. It's kind of a paper trail, but it's about for transit. It's about $250,000 a year. So roughly for the 2015 budget, the subsidy will be about $1.2 million is kind of roughly what the budget is at this time. I mean, it will probably change here and there as we go through that, but just to give you an idea of the budget we're working on for FY 2015, that's what you'll see.
So the 1.2 million would include the 250,000.
It would, yes, sir.
So you'd indicated that a previous subsidy had been somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.2 million or so. If this is actually a smaller subsidy then?
Yeah, and I think what happened is, if you recall, in 2012, there were a couple of routes, or one route, and so a couple of buses and some bus drivers, I believe it was out on the south side of town, that we eliminated from the transit system. So that obviously helped lower the subsidy overall at that time.
But we'd added it in from a previous year
Yeah.
and then took it back out. So
Correct. So the subsidy grew. So I might be able to get it there for you.
I think we added it in like 2011, didn't we? And
Yeah, it's
took it out in
somewhere
2012.
Or in the back, I
think
could
that's
see a little
right.
It's a
better.
world famous Southwest route that we thought would work, and it just didn't come
Right.
together. How long did we run that for? I know Roger Schwartz isn't here anymore, but Joyce, do you remember at the time how long did we
It's fun balance.
test that route?
I saw this.
We had that route for a little less than a year.
Okay, I didn't think we had even that long.
So this kind of
Go
gives
ahead,
you this gives you kind of an idea. It looks like I think we added it in here probably in 2011. So from 10 to 11, you can see that the subsidy, and then it dropped in 12, and it dropped a little further there in 13, just from the different changes we
13,
made.
it was artificially low, I think, because there was like 300,000 that was in an account.
And that's
Hadn't
the
been
case for
swept.
14. Yes, so
That was the
we
case
used
in
it.
14.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Joe or Dale?
I do have
Joe.
one more. I do have one more thing to. In the report, we talked about the new pronouncements coming up that will affect the city in the future, and that's going to have to deal with your unfunded actuarial liability on the pension plan. So, I mean, your pension is through loggers, so there will have to be a recognition in the financial statements of that unfunded liability. Currently, the governmental accounting regulations require that to be disclosed. So you see it in the footnotes. It's been there every year we've done the audit. So it's disclosed in the footnotes. But for your 2016 year, you will it has to be booked on the financial statements. So that will impact your fund balance when that goes into place and has to be recognized. Something to look forward to in 2016.
We'll keep that on the horizon, Joe. Anything else, Bob?
Could I ask you a couple questions about that last? Since the pensions are funded on an as-you-go basis, in other words, each year we take a percentage of payroll and whatever it is to keep the pensions funded. Wouldn't that almost be a in on this side and out on this side type transaction? I mean, even though it's shown on the, does it actually go on there as a liability?
So it is true that the city makes the contributions that loggers is telling you to make. But if you read in the footnote, it also tells you that the unfunded liability is being spread out over 19 years.
Can be as high as 30 years.
So, I mean, I guess but you are not paying an amount in equal to totally funded. So it's the mathematical equation of the assets that are there less the actuarially determined liability, the net of those two, plus and minus, is either a liability or an asset. And for the city, it is a liability. That liability increased when the firemen were moved over into loggers, just because of the length of time that, there was a liability over there also. So,
Do you have a question, Bob?
No, I'm sure I don't understand what she's talking about.
Okay.
But
We'll give Mihalovich a try.
Yeah.
Rick.
I got a softball for you. We debated a little bit what the appropriate fund balance would be, because we collect so much money, and if we don't disperse it back for city services, then we'll just have this rainy day fund that continues to grow. And I've heard 12%, I've heard other percentages, but what I heard you say was $2.5 million to cover 2 months would be $5 million, and about $5 million would be about the right amount.
I don't know that I said that.
That's what you have. It's not necessarily the right amount.
I was trying to help you evaluate what the balance equated to. So I took the expenditures, divided it by 12 to see how many months would be covered by that. I don't know that there is a magic formula. I mean, there are some non-municipal governments who try to hit 6 months, but I don't know that there's a magic formula for a city government.
There really isn't, but I think the thing that probably gives me the one concern that is probably not enough is the revenues. When we hit times like we had the last 3, 4, 5 years, and you see your sales tax revenues drop so substantially, and then property taxes kind of go flat. And so you like to have the ability to have those extra funds that you can kind of carry on without too much disruption, because you can see what happens real quick with the numbers. You can have $2-3 million drop off your revenue real quick. And this is a little bit of I'm going to say a hot potato, but what concerns me is we're losing so much sales tax to Amazon and all these other places that sell on the internet. And that's such a huge amount of what people do today. I mean, I can't tell you what it is. All I can tell you is think about what people do in their own families, and it really does affect the revenue side, and that scares me. I'll be honest with you, as a citizen here, is that we have a huge amount of revenue that's not coming in, and I think that's why we don't see those revenues popping back also, because it's becoming a bigger and bigger part of everybody's everyday life as they just buy it on the internet. But no, I really would probably feel a little more comfortable if it was more than the $5 million, just so we can kind of go through these ebbs and flows of the economy, because it doesn't come back. As we know, sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years for things to come back, and they're still not at the level they were before. So it just gives you a little bit better cushion.
Rick, any follow-up? Dale, Joe, thank you. Unless there's any other. Bob, go ahead.
Just a comment on that. It's especially difficult to build fund balance whenever you're at the low side, which is when you really recognize that you need to build fund balance. But fund balance competes with programs, because if you only build fund balance by not funding programs. So
which is true, but sometimes if you have that fund balance at appropriate levels, it helps you to keep funding those programs through the bad times too. I mean, it's a catch-22. It really is.
It really, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's a dilemma that we have. We're going to hear in a little bit from some folks that are going to ask us to increase the size of some programs, and at the same time, the reality of it is that it's be very difficult to do. So.
Any other questions of our guest? Thank you guys very much for the job you do for the city. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have on our agenda Ashley Barner is here tonight, invited by Councilman Scrivener, Graham, and Mihalovich. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Ashley hurt her foot yesterday. She told me
no,
before
not
the
my
meeting,
foot.
so.
Not my foot. I'm moving slow. I broke my tailbone yesterday, so prayers are definitely accepted this way. First of all, just thank you, Councilman Scrivener, Councilman Graham, and Councilman Mihalovich. I'm just so glad that I have this opportunity for inviting us. We're here representing Citizens for Jeff Trans, Central Missouri Community Action, Faith Voices for Jefferson City, and the Community Services Committee. All of these groups have identified transit as a priority. We are asking and offering the council a resolution to set up a group of representing stakeholders to work with city leaders to gather ideas, suggest strategies, and cooperate to recommend ideas that are effective and realistic. A public transit advisory committee. We are only asking for creative cooperation, a great place to start. We've brought along speakers from the business, faith, and education sectors to share with the council their needs for a vibrant public transit system.
Good evening. My name is Doug Ward. I'm the general manager of Colton Steakhouse here in Jefferson City. They're on Missouri Boulevard, and I've come to talk a little bit about how the transit system affects me as an employer. So there's actually a bus stop about 100 feet from Colton Steakhouse there on Missouri Boulevard, and despite that very convenient location, I only have about 3 employees that use JeffTran to get to work. And the main reason for that is that the first question I ask any applicant is whether or not they have reliable transportation to get to and from work. And the schedule that JeffTran currently runs is not what I would call reliable transportation for about 90% of the shifts that we run there at the restaurant. Because as hopefully many of you know from coming to my restaurant, nighttime is really when we're busiest, and nighttime is when public transportation is the least available. Not to mention the weekend runs. So the few employees I do have that take JeffTran live within walking distance of the restaurant, which is how they were able to get hired, because they committed to me that they would walk if they couldn't get here another way. Well, walking distance is sometimes 3 and 4 miles, which depending on the elements, they still come. They're dedicated employees. But if you had to do your jobs by walking 3 or 4 miles in 100-degree weather or 30-degree weather, your ability to perform them when you got there would probably be a little bit less, as is the case with them. And I tried to hold it against them because they are making the effort, but it affects their performance. It affects what I'm able to do as an employer, what you guys are able to enjoy when you come to my restaurant. And expanding JeffTran would make it a lot easier for me to get more applicants in the door. So there might be some qualified applicants I've had to turn down because they couldn't get there reliably. And not to mention the few people that do use it, it would certainly impact their performance and their livelihood and make it to where they weren't dedicating 10 hours to a shift that was only really going to last 6 or 7. So as an employer, I would definitely appreciate some more oversight and looking into expanding it. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Nicholson, and I currently serve as president of the Jefferson City Public Schools Board of Education. For children to thrive in school, to be successful in developing, to become productive citizens, it's critical that they develop a sense of belonging. If they do not have the opportunity to participate in activities at school, they do not develop this sense of belonging and purpose. No child should be deprived of the ability to fully participate because of lack of transportation. There are other activities for youth in our community where children are denied participation because of lack of transportation. Children participating fully in school help make our neighborhoods safer and healthier. If a parent is unable to attend school activities such as parent-teacher conferences or other events at school, we all suffer because of lack of their full participation. The Jeff City Public Schools provide infant-toddler daycare for our teen parents at Jefferson City at the Southwest Education Center. For teen parents that are at Jefferson City High School and JCAC. These parents must provide transportation for their child, and this becomes an extreme problem when their baby gets sick during the day and they do not have reliable transportation to attend to their child. There are students who depend upon public transportation for the scheduled school day. Currently, students 9-12 who live within 3.5 miles of school are not provided transportation. However, the upcoming school year, Jeff City Public Schools plans to reduce that radius to 1 mile in our proposed budget. However, there is a large segment of our children who attend parochial school and depend upon public transportation daily. And I had an email from Father Stephen Jones at Elias High School who asked me to read the email to you. He couldn't be here tonight. He said, members of City Council, although I am not able to be at this meeting tonight because of a previous commitment, I'm thankful to Dr. Nicholson to read to you my brief thoughts concerning public transit in Jefferson City and how it affects the school community which I lead. As president of Elias Catholic High School, I can tell you firsthand how important and effective and expansive public transit system is to our students, many of whom use the system daily to travel to and from school. As a school that does not have the luxury of being able to operate its own transit system, these students and their families rely on the Jefferson City Public Transit System. Any reduction or elimination of these services would put these young people and their parents in a difficult situation, to say the least. One of the great strengths of our community are its public, private, and parochial schools. These institutions form generations of leaders for our city and should be afforded every opportunity by city services such as public transit to assist them in carrying out this noble goal. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Father Stephen Jones, President, Elias Catholic High School. And also I had a letter from Dr. Mitchell, and you've got that, and you can read that on your own. So in closing, I believe that a vibrant transportation system is crucial to the future health of our community. And thank you for listening, and please consider establishing a public transportation advisory committee to help citizens come together to help in understanding how to solve these important issues.
Dennis, I have a question for you. And the only reason you get this question because you had me in earth science in, I think, my sophomore year.
Yeah.
And he told me you'll never be mayor if you don't. Dennis, since we've known each other for a long time, my question is this. Can an advisory group like that, what you're asking for, and I haven't had a chance to read this, just saw this tonight. I mean, obviously, as Bob said earlier, as we all know, we're looking at a $1.2 million deficit or subsidy going into next year's budget for our transit system. Are you telling me, as one of the leaders of this group, how can you help us trim that number, knowing that there could be an elimination of some possible services because of that?
Our request is just to be part of the conversation. Whether we're talking about in the public schools or in the city government, we want to start a conversation, and we think that with this help of this committee, we can help make that a richer, a better conversation. So it's just on a conversation.
So it would be, in your eyes, it would be a group that could help us decide where possibly some route services, whatever, might be reduced in order to gain services in other areas. I mean, because I think I heard in what you said and what I've heard before from this group is that nights and weekends are very important, and I can see why. However, when we're at $1.2 million as a subsidy now, adding those services are extremely difficult unless we get help from outside sources.
Right.
So my question to you and Ms. Varner is that something you think this group can help the council do over time?
The plan is the thought is to help the council try to. It's a very hard question. It's a hard task to accomplish, and just to get a broader conversation going to solve this problem for our community and beyond next year's budget.
Okay.
I see this as far into the future.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks for answering that. Yes, sir, Mr. Bray.
Make sure I heard correctly. Public school, grade 9 through 12, going from a 3.5 mile radius to a 1 mile radius?
Yeah, currently we bus children who are 3.5 miles or farther to the 9 through 12. In our preliminary budget, which has not been passed by the school board yet, we're going to attempt to reduce that to 1 mile for Simonson and the high school.
That sounds nice. That's good.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Jeannie McGowan. I'm a retired pastor, and I live at 209 Cherry Street. And I would like to thank you, council members, for hearing and responding to our previous requests to refrain from reducing the JeffTran budget and from cutting routes during the day in the past. Those were important decisions, and we're most grateful. Tonight I speak representing the faith community here in Jefferson City, and I know that some of you were present in January when we had our Faith Voices for Jefferson City founding convention. You observed a standing room only crowd with over 30 faith traditions represented to stand with the most vulnerable of our city. Why were we there? Because whatever our traditions, our faiths share a common goal of seeking the common good. Our faith demands a recognition of those who are in need and often overlooked, and a responsibility to help them in every way possible. While individuals and agencies can hear someone's plea for help and say, "I'm so sorry, but we have no more resources," we cannot. At the end of the day, our churches are left to pick up the pieces. It's a moral obligation. Tonight, I'm so proud of the group that are here that represent some of our disabled community who would not be here tonight if it were not for churches providing transportation for them to be here. And I thank each one of you for being here. But we do have this moral obligation, and that's what we do. But that's also why we're here. Again and again, we begin to see that public transportation is a widespread need that affects each one of us indirectly, if not directly. We've continued listening, not only to those who depend on public transportation, but also to others in our community, other leaders. We're beginning to understand better how this issue impacts many different areas. Our desire to see the establishment of a public transportation advisory committee has grown. Our dream is to see a committee established to work with you to discover new ways of funding and new ways of making it possible for expansion, to make our publication a shining star in the state of Missouri. We want to show how creativity, determination, and vision can come together to make Jefferson City a progressive, vibrant home for all of its citizens. It's the right thing to do.
In conclusion, we believe that now is the time to create and sustain a vibrant transportation system. Tonight we are asking the council to refer this to the appropriate committee to start listening to the voices of our community through collaboration. Thank you for your time
Ms. Barner, thank
and
you very
action on
much.
this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Varner, we're talking about this committee. Who do you envision serving on this committee? What is the makeup of this committee that you all would like to be formed?
You should have on your, I believe Phyllis emailed that to you along with your packet for this evening, a copy of the resolution, beginnings of a conversation of who needs to be involved in that. There is
Am I seeing 15
a list of
members here?
15 members, yep,
That's okay.
divided into all different segments of the community. So every segment of the community is represented and every voice is heard.
So I guess my other
So there are no
question-
specific people named.
Okay.
It's to work with the council to figure that out.
So I guess what I'm really trying to ask is, so this will be made up of individuals who support transit and those individuals who may not support transit. Is so the committee.
It would be representative of both supporters and non-supporters.
Okay.
And the council would have a say in who some of those people are. So again, we want to work with you.
Actually, I'm going to work on the fly here. Okay, so this isn't everyday TV, so to speak. Steve, can we have a work session on a special work session on June the 30th? It's a Monday night. And what I would like to talk about at that session is your ideas on what we can do futurely with transit, okay? And obviously after hearing the voices of this group before, and also knowing, as you well know, our budget, what we could do in the future. And that could also be a general work session for transit as a whole, for the whole council, because as your mayor, I don't know if this is something you want to take to one committee. You all here today are not one committee. You're not one special interest group. You represent, obviously, different groups, but this council and myself and our staff obviously represent the entire city. And if we're going to take this on, as difficult as it could be, I think I would like to see it taken on at the entire council level. When I say that I'm kind of working on the fly here, Drew, I think what we're going to do is just kind of just as the budget or anything else, or just like we did with the conference center, we obviously know we can take on tough issues at one time. Mr. Administrator, let's put this at the top of the list and see what we can do starting on June 30th. And the only reason I say June 30th and not next week, I just know we've got some other stuff already coming up. But this is something we're going to be talking about at budget time, which is coming around the corner. So let's get together and do that. And I think for you all, let's have those meetings right here so there's plenty of room for you guys to come. And also let's make arrangements for them to speak on their comments each time that we meet. But I think in the future it's what we're going to have to do unless someone else has other comments. At this point in time, I would open it up for comments. Yes, sir.
Just a quick point. I mean, personally, I know Steve can work this out. I won't be available on the 30th to be at that meeting. I'll be out of town that week, and I don't know if other council members will have the same thing. I don't know if that'll impact whether or not it happens on the 30th. I guess my question for you, Mr. Mayor, is the creation of a committee or what has been proposed tonight part of the conversation you envision taking place as well? On the 30th?
I think what I want to do, Councilman, is look at our administrator and give him a good 3 weeks to tell us what he thinks we should do, and I say that in somewhat of a light-hearted manner. But Steve and I have talked about this a lot, and we know it's an issue that we have in the city. We know that a transit system is a very important quality of life issue for all residents, whether you ride the system, whether you're an employer, whether your car breaks down for a month or a week or whatever it might be. We all know why that it's important, and I don't think any of us here are here to argue that fact. What I'm trying to do as the mayor is put it on all of our laps, whether our councilman from the 3rd Ward can make it that night or not. At this point in time, is that we need to start somewhere, and I think that gives us plenty of time to rearrange schedules if we can. And Steve can report to us on what some of our options are. To answer your question, I would see that some type of committee could be an option. Whether it's necessarily this committee as you've designed here tonight, I can't speak for the council. It'd be something the council's going to decide. Stephen.
I'm just going to say it may not be a discussion about specific options, but options on how to get to particular strategies
and
or
that's
solutions.
What I meant. Right. Any other questions? Bob, do you have any questions?
I'm just going to say I appreciate the 4 persons that spoke tonight, and I know they speak from the heart. And I understand that they're trying to improve the transit system for the benefit of people who use the transit system. And I've spoken many times with Ashley and with others about my position, but I would hope that if we do this meeting on the 30th, and if we have other meetings going forward, I would really hope those that are committed to increasing the service, either through increased night service or weekend service or whatever, would really, and I've said this before to Ashley and others, it's really a matter of funding. And if you really feel very, very strongly that this is a service that needs to be expanded, then I would urge you to either find business people or citizens or others who are willing to consider revenue sources. Because if you were, and I know you were here earlier, you saw the report and you heard the concerns voiced by our auditor about the fact that sales taxes have been going down and property taxes have been flat, and those are the 2 revenue sources that the city has. And sales tax and property tax funds general revenue, and subsidies for transit comes out of general revenue. And we have a $1.2 million subsidy now, And certainly that subsidy would have to grow if our services grew. There's no other way around it. So that puts you in direct competition with the police, the fire, public works, and other programs. And so the only way that you cannot be in competition with those programs is if there's another funding source. I know I sat here as Mr. Seaman, or well, actually, I guess Dale didn't speak, but I sat here while the report was being made, and I looked up there and saw that we had two revenue sources, and I wanted to ask him what other revenue source would he suggest that might be more stable or more that might replace the revenue sources that we have. And I certainly can't think of any right off the top of my head, but that would be the conversation that I would be having with folks in the business community, folks of the faith community, and folks that are users. Because right now, less than 10% of the funding for the transit system comes from provider fees. I mean, that's really not a realistic place to look for a significant increase either. So, you know, I would just say that over the next 3 weeks, that would probably be a good assignment, maybe, is to be visiting with people about ideas that they might have for how could we fund it if we grow it.
Excuse me, I have to sit down. I apologize. Is this
No,
microphone
that's
work
fine.
over
I'm
here?
through anyway.
Actually, you could take that cordless one with you if you need to. But I think Bob's done. Anyone else for Ashley? Ashley, I know you're hurting.
Yeah.
Literally. Thank you for being here. Thank everyone for being here tonight. This is a very, very tough issue. This is something that many of us knew about when we first joined the city council, or Mayor Landwehr knew about it, and I'm sure Mayor Rackers and others knew too, that this was a subsidy. But we know it's important. We know it's important to our community. But we as Bob just said, we have to remember that we're working together on both sides. You're going to have to help us, whether it's through a work session or sessions or meetings on just this issue. I'm committed as your mayor, and I know the council is too, to get that done. But I think it's important that we do it as a whole, and we use our staff, and we use the entire community to get to the best choices that we have to make. But I will tell you today, there will be some difficult choices unless we get increased funding from the federal government, which at this point in time, I don't see happening, but we're going to stay sunshiny as we move forward. And luckily, we have a brand new city administrator with new ideas, 30 years of experience. Let's give him a round of applause now. No. But, and, all right, thank you guys once again for being here. And if that concludes that, at this point in time, we will have a 10-minute recess. Thank you. I don't think this program or project will be a week-long process, obviously. We did not get in this shape overnight as a city with our transit system, and it will take some time to see what's best for our community, but I appreciate you as the citizens coming forward. Next, announcements by staff. We have Interim Fire Chief, Mr. Jason Turner, to make an announcement. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that Summer Fire School is this week here in Jefferson City where some 500 firefighters from across the nation, including 15 states, will be visiting, participating in classes. Any of the council that would like to see any of those activities are encouraged to contact Fire Administration, and we'll schedule those Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday at the Hyde Park Training Facility. If I didn't mention, the furthest traveled from the 15 states is the state of Alaska.
Great. Any other questions for Chief Turner? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Any way to measure the economic impact of having those firefighters in here? How many are coming, and they're going to be here for how many nights? 3 nights?
Oh, I know we work really close with the CBV on this, and they work with the fire school staff. I'm sure we can try to get that information for you.
Diane should have that.
I think that'd be a great number to see in the newspaper here in the next few days, how big an economic impact that is for the community.
Jason, thank you for that update. Any other questions for Chief Turner tonight? All right, moving on, we'll have no presentations underneath number 9. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to accept our consent agenda, which is our council meeting minutes from May 19th.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we'll have first reading of Bill 2014-21.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, and modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 1.1 acres from M2 General Industrial to PUD Planned Unit Development for land addressed as 2725 Merchants Drive, described as lots 26 and 27 of Bax's Commercial Property Subdivision in Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
Janice McMillan. Janice, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. This application came to the Planning and Zoning Commission in May, and it's a little unusual because the rezoning and PUD plan involves an existing building on Merchants Drive. This is the zoning map of the area. The Merchants Drive building is shown at the bottom of the screen here, outlined in black. You can see the zoning districts that surround it. M2 is in the light purple area. You can see some area of C2 general commercial in this vicinity as well. The application is for the support of a mixed use within the existing building. This is the existing building, the area that's affected. The area that's affected includes an area that will be used for adult daycare, office use, and about 15,000 square feet of warehouse space. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved this use at their meeting on May 15th, and there are 2 parts to this application. There's a rezoning from M2 to PUD, and the PUD plan that approves the mixed use within the building. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Janice tonight on 2014-21? All right, moving on. We'll have first reading of 2014-22, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, approving a preliminary PUD plan for property located at 2725 Merchants Drive, described as lots 26 and 27 of Bax's Commercial Property Subdivision, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
I'll call on Ms. McMillan again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This PUD plan would allow for the mixed use within the existing building at 2725 Merchants Drive. Essentially, the PUD plan is to support the adult daycare use in conjunction with the warehouse use and the office use.
Any questions for Janice on 22? Moving on, first reading of 2014. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Just a question. Is that going to be operated as 2 separate businesses, the warehouse business separate from the daycare business?
The owner has a partnership with the applicant. There's going to be an adult daycare center operated in this building, and she's going to provide job training for the individuals that are enrolled in the adult daycare within the warehouse use. So it's a symbiotic relationship between this adult daycare use and the existing or the medical office and warehouse use.
So it's a warehouse that's going to be used as a part of, or
it's a medical supply
medical,
distribution.
Okay. All right, so it's not just a separate warehouse building that's going to be used just for warehousing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on 22? Thank you, Bob. First reading of 2014-23, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a development agreement with GTLR Development Corporation.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could have the slide brought back up again. The development agreement with GTLR. This slide shows Covington Gardens subdivision, the subject of this development agreement. This shows Section 5 of Covington Gardens. Covington Gardens subdivision was approved as a preliminary plat in March 1997. Contains over 500 lots. This last section of in Section 5 contains 134 lots. The lots that are highlighted in green are the lots that are still owned by the developer, GTLR. The subdivision code of the city provides that when more than 50% of the lots in a subdivision have been issued, that no additional permits may be issued until all of the improvements are installed and accepted for maintenance by the city. In this particular section, 63% of the lots have been issued permits, and so the remaining lots, it puts the remaining lots at a bit of a disadvantage because the installation of the improvements is not complete. The developer has been very cooperative with the Department of Public Works in installing the infrastructure and getting all those deficiencies corrected. But quite frankly, he needs a little more time to complete the installation of those improvements and construct the sidewalks. So this development agreement authorizes additional time for the developer to complete those improvements and install the sidewalks and provide some guidelines on the maintenance of those undeveloped lots. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions of Janice on 23? Okay, moving on, we'll have a third reading, 2014-14. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you. An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Stockman Construction Corporation for the Water Street at Loman's Landing project.
Mr. Marash.
Thank you, Mayor. As the clerk indicated, this is a construction contract to reconstruct Water Street. It's the area where the Amtrak station is now located. Basically, the city received a grant to do this project, which is administered through MoDOT. The total cost of the project is $386,211. The city's share of that, which would come from capital improvement sales tax, is just over $77,000. Basically, the goal of the grant was to improve the area, improve its accessibility, and reconstruct the brick pavered street in that area, and just get a better looking area as people enter the city from the Amtrak station. And we recommend approval to Stockman, the low bid.
Okay, any questions of staff on 2014-14? Any debate by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costello.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2014-15, please.
An ordinance amending Section 19401, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Schedule A, Speed Limits, Subparagraph D, Schedule G, Stop Intersections, Subparagraph B, and Schedule H, Yield Signs, Subparagraph A of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, pertaining to various roadways.
Mr. Marash.
Thank you, Mayor. This is basically a cleanup of our traffic code. Recently, staff noticed that many of our signs in North Jefferson City, the old Cedar City area, weren't in the code. And so we categorized those, took this through transportation and traffic to get those in the code so they're legally enforceable, and would recommend approval.
Any questions of staff by council members? Any debate by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bray.
Aye.
Costello.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2014-17, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the 2013-2014 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by appropriating additional funds within the general fund.
Mr. Rash.
Thank you. As clerk indicated, this is a supplemental appropriation. The total cost is $200,000. The purpose of it would be to expend about $150,000 on chemicals to replace our depleted salt storage from this last winter. As everyone knows, very harsh winter. And then in addition to that, our overtime budgets were hit hard as well, so about $50,000 of it goes towards overtime that we've expended to do those storms. Obviously, we would need overtime yet this summer as we get into our summer season, so this replenishes those funds so we can accomplish our work this summer. We recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of council on 2014-17? Any debate, council members? Roll call, please.
Costello.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of Bill 2014-18, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 5, Animals of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, by the addition of a new subsection pertaining to exotic animals.
At this point in time, I would call on Davis. This is Dad, his new dad.
Yeah.
Our assistant attorney, Jeremy, just had a new son here a few weeks ago. Jeremy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the clerk said, this is a new section of the code that would regulate exotic animals as defined. It would just simply require that the person who wants the exotic animal get the permission of the police chief, which will be done if they have the appropriate permit issued by the applicable state or federal agency. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jeremy? Mr. Bray.
Jeremy, what is an exotic animal, and how and why did we get into the exotic animal business?
Well, would you like me to read the definition to you? It's defined in the...
Yes, please.
I'm sorry? Okay. For purpose of this section, exotic animal means any animal which is not of a species customarily kept as a household pet, but one which would ordinarily be confined to a zoo, or one which would ordinarily be found in the wilderness of this or any other country, or one which would otherwise cause a reasonable person to be fearful of bodily harm or property damage. This definition includes, but is not limited to, large cats such as cougars, lions, and tigers, wolves, coyotes, and hybrids of each, venomous snakes and primates, but does not include fish and captive bred species of common caged birds. I will tell you that was a definition that we at the staff level spent a long time working on with the help of the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, which is comprised of veterinarians. They in turn then had some tweaks to it, which we made before it went to the Public Safety Committee, and they did unanimously approve and promote this inclusion of this ordinance. The reason that we're proposing this now is city staff, specifically the animal control section, had some encounters with exotic animals, and based on that, believed that it would be appropriate for the city to regulate this so that we would be aware of those exotic animals.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was excellent.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeremy this evening, Bob?
I guess it would be a question maybe for the chief. It says that it has to be approved by the chief. Is that something that we anticipate would be routinely approved if it's properly caged, properly secured, and so forth? Or is that something that you would anticipate would not so routinely be approved?
I don't think I would be able to characterize it as routinely approved or rarely approved. This is new, so we'll educate ourselves as we're confronted with something within that's addressed within the ordinance, and use our best judgment with the advice of the veterinarians, and hopefully do the right thing.
Are we aware of any animals that are currently in the city that'll have to be approved?
I'm not
removed?
personally aware of any, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on 2014-18, also known as the exotic bill? Any debate by council members? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Graham,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Hussey,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Branch,
Aye.
Bray,
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2014-19, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 5 Animals of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to maximum number of animals.
Jeremy, you're up again, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our second animal ordinance for the night. As the clerk indicated, this one pertains to the maximum number of animals. Currently, if you can have a maximum of 6 animals, any more than that requires a multiple animal permit. This does not change the number of animals, but it does expand the area to beyond the dwelling. So if you have a house and property, currently it only applies to the house, and so you could have more animals on the property that would not be applicable under this. This would expand it to the entire property, and we believe would be accurately reflected in how it was intended. This was the result of citizen complaints where animal control had received complaints about multiple animals on a property. They'd go out there and find that they were on the property and not actually in the dwelling, and they weren't able to do anything about it. And this is responsive to those complaints. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Cover? Mr. Scrivener.
I think we asked this before, and I guess I'd like to make sure I understand. What is the provision for people who might have more than the 6 animals now? Or will they be required to remove some, or what's our plan?
Sure. For people who currently have more than 6 animals, and whether or not they're have a permit right now, they wouldn't have to get rid of any animals. All current animals would be grandfathered in, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. Going forward, if someone who didn't have a permit then did get more animals, they would have to get a permit at that point in order to get the new animals. Like most other code enforcement, this is complaint driven, so it's not as if animal control is going door to door to count your animals. They respond to complaints, and that's how these things come about.
How in terms of grandfathering, how will we know if someone actually had the animals before the effective date of this ordinance?
Well, for the most part, we'd have to ask them. I mean, they could have vet bills. I mean, they could show that they were there. There is going to be, in the beginning, as far as grandfathered in, a certain amount of, talking with people and taking them on their word for it. Eventually, after assuming that the ordinance goes into effect, eventually then it's more likely that they came after the ordinance. But in the beginning, we're going to have to take them at their word for it.
And this is in direct response to citizen complaint. I mean, we are doing this in response to citizens, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Any other questions of staff on 2014-19? Any council debate? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2014-20, please.
An ordinance amending Chapter 8, Building and Building Regulations, and Chapter 21, Nuisances of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, pertaining to insurance proceeds.
At this point in time, we'll call on Ms. McMillan again. Janice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance amends the city code so that 25% of any insurance proceeds that are to be retained by the city when a building is substantially destroyed by any fire or other catastrophic event. This would greatly aid our department in making sure that substantially damaged buildings are repaired or remediated.
Okay. Any other questions of Janice? Mr. Scribner.
Janice, you used the word retained, and what you mean by that is on deposit until, as a security deposit, if you will, until the
Yes.
the
Placed in
property's cleaned
escrow.
up.
Yes.
Placed in escrow. So the city's not going to benefit from that money. It'll just be used if we have to
That's correct.
do the work ourselves.
It's basically just a way to guarantee that the work is going to be done. Either the building's going to be torn down or repaired.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that the public understood that retained didn't mean that the city was
Not
now
forever.
gonna- Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob, for that clarification. Any other questions by council members on number 20? Any debate by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll move into resolutions. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to proceed with Resolution 2014-8.
I move that Resolution 2014-8 be accepted.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Costales. Thank you, Glenn. At this point in time, if the clerk could give us a brief description, please.
A resolution authorizing the City of Jefferson to apply for the 2014 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance JAG Program Grant.
And tell us more is Chief Schrader. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a federal U.S. Department of Justice grant. It's an annual grant. The Justice Department tells local units of government how much money they will receive if they apply. And in our case, they have told us this year we would receive $20,469. We have a mutual agreement with the Sheriff's Department to split that 60-40, with the city being the recipient of 60% of those funds, which would amount to $12,281.40 without local match, no local match. It has also been through the Public Safety Committee and supported there, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Chief on this grant process? Seeing none, feel you're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, roll call, please.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have entertain a motion for Resolution 2014-9.
Move 2014-9 be approved.
Seconded by Mr. Hussey. Sorry about that. Long weekend. Ask the clerk to have a description, please.
A resolution regarding the use of CIP sales tax funds for the Lafayette Enhancement Plan.
Mr. Matt.
Thank you. Basically, this resolution does two things. One, it pledges support, the city's support of the Lafayette Interchange Enhancement Plan. It's the topic of what the county commissioner came last meeting, gave the council a report on. In addition, to make that happen, adjust the cash flow and sales tax E&F to accomplish the project in the proper time frame. The time frame basically is the city and county would have to deposit funds with MoDOT yet this fall to before they bid the project. So the sales tax would have to be adjusted in a cash flow way. Basically, the project is being considered part of our MSP commitment in our sales tax, capital improvement sales tax. And once as we do these projects, this and other city-county projects, we have an agreement. The city and county have a joint projects agreement, which looks how we expend the funds, and then we rebalance every so often, so we're each spending 50-50 on these type projects. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff on 2014-9? I have one comment. Normally don't make a lot of comments about resolutions, but I do want to thank the county commission for kind of moving on this before we did early on as we had our money in MSP, and also want to thank Senator Kehoe for his work with MoDOT to try to get this funding. As Mike and I were talking the other day, I think this could hopefully be the beginning of several entrances coming into our most beautiful city. Any debate by the council? Roll call, please.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll entertain a motion to take up 2014-10.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. If we could have a brief description from the clerk, please.
A resolution authorizing the City of Jefferson, Missouri to apply for an emergency solutions grant.
Okay, at this point in time, Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution will authorize the filing of an application for an emergency solutions grant. ESG funds may be used for 4 eligible activities, including rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, street outreach, and emergency shelter. If awarded, the city will make available ESG funds to eligible nonprofit agencies that provide shelter care in our community. And we've identified 3 agencies that are eligible to apply for these funds. So this grant would be applied for on behalf of these other nonprofit organizations. The city would be eligible to be reimbursed 5% for grant administration. Other than that, the grants are basically passed through to the nonprofit organizations. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Janice? Seeing none, any debate by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costales.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Motion passes. At this point in time, we do have a resolution that's been added tonight. It's Resolution 2014-11, and the sponsor is Councilman Carlos Graham. We're going to please. First, we'll take it up, please. If there's a motion to do so. It's been moved and seconded by Branch. Description, please.
A resolution of the City of Jefferson declaring June 2014 as Immigrant Heritage Month.
Carlos, would you like to explain, please?
Yes, if I could have Mr. James Harris to come up to the podium, please.
Thank you, Councilman Graham and Mr. Mayor. My name is James Harris. I live at 3618 Gettysburg Place, and June is National Immigrant Heritage Month, and I thought it would be a good thing for the city to have a resolution kind of, commending many people have made our community richer, whether it be culturally, from a business perspective, many physicians that have chose to come here, raise their family, and really, in many ways, achieve the American dream. We have, whether it's people that love going into here in Coffee Zone and enjoying speaking with him. If you go into Obby's, which I go in occasionally, and listening about the first time he got a loan from someone and how he built his business, whether it's, if you go to JCMG and if you had to see Dr. Hoshman, who's one of the neurologists, people have really, I'd just say they've achieved the dream and they've made our community richer. And I think sometimes these type of resolutions help people in these communities. They'll share them with their friends, and wouldn't say it's an economic development thing, but I do think it makes people feel a little more welcomed. And as a community, say we appreciate people doing things lawfully coming here. So that was the long and short of it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I know Mr. Harris and I did have a long conversation on Wednesday and on Thursday morning about this resolution. Would you like for me to read it or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The resolution of the City of Jefferson declaring June 2014 as Immigrant Heritage Month. Whereas generations of immigrants from every corner of the globe have built our country's economy and created the unique character of our nation. And whereas immigrants continue to grow businesses, innovate, strengthen our economy, and create American jobs in Jefferson City, Missouri. And whereas immigrants have provided the United States with unique social and cultural influence, fundamentally enriching the extraordinary character of our nation. And whereas immigrants have been tirelessly leaders not only in securing their own rights and access to equal opportunity, but have also campaigned to create a fairer and more just society for all Americans. Whereas the role of the immigrants in building and enriching our nation continues to contribute to and provide the foundation and strength of our society. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Jefferson that June 2014 is designated as Immigrant Heritage Month. Thank you.
Carlos, thank you very much. Any comments by the council? Mr. Bray.
I took interest in this resolution and talked to Carlos about it, and I would like to add the comment that, in my opinion, at any time in the brief history of our great country, immigrants have been and continue to be the strength and backbone of our diverse society. I support this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. Any other comments from council members or debate? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Costello.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scribner.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll move into number 15. If you are still here to talk about transit, would you please raise your hand? One, two. Okay, I'll just go down through the list that I have, and if someone's already spoken or if they're already left, we will continue on. First, I have Mr. Gaskin.
Good evening. Charles Gaskin, 2604 Twin Hills Road.
Welcome, Charles.
Excuse me. Third Ward. Yes, sir?
I said welcome.
Oh, thank you. Let's see if I've got this right. The city of Jefferson has 43,000 residents. The state of Missouri has 6 million residents. Jefferson City has fewer than 500 employees. The state of Missouri has 30,000 employees. Our new chief executive gets paid more than the governor of Missouri. That indicates, at least to me, that the chief executive of our city has management capabilities far in excess of that of our governor. Does that mean our new chief executive has the most important position in the city? No, not to me. The most important positions in this city is the chief of police and the fire chief. Why? They are solely responsible and trained to ensure the safety and security of Jefferson City. It takes unique requirements for that. These positions require specific qualifications. This is a recent qualification list for fire chief. This fire chief description, which I have here, is dated March 3, 2014, requires an accredited bachelor's degree in the science and more, in fire science and more. An accredited master's degree is preferred. This was recently modified to include the statement, significant experience and training as a chief officer role may be substituted for the accredited bachelor's degree. This revision is undated. It appears that the fire department's public education officer, currently the interim fire chief, is a preferred candidate for chief. This gentleman, as far as I'm concerned, has an excellent record as a public education officer. I consider him truly to be an asset not only to this community, but to the fire department. His duties include arranging the annual fire safety program at our elementary schools. He apparently is unaware that 5 of our elementary schools do not have a fire sprinkler system. This problem has existed for years, and it is being taken care of independent of this. Recent public information says that some of our fire stations have inoperable garage doors. Each of these 5 schools have 400 students in it and 40 staff. Should a fire develop in one of those elementary schools, the loss of life would be headline material. Coupled with the non-working station doors, what chance will they have for survival? It is my understanding that the interim fire chief public education officer either withheld the condition of the doors or was told to be quiet because there were insufficient city funds to fix them. For the fire chief position of our city, I support fully an internal as well as an external search to find the best candidate for this very important position. Above all, that person must meet the original requirements. I have 2 questions for you tonight that I would
Mr.
like answered
Gasket,
tonight.
if you could finish up, please.
Pardon me, sir?
Your time's up, please, if
Okay.
you could finish up.
Who made these changes and under whose approval? And when will the original requirements be reinstated? Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Charles. Steve, would you like to address those changes, please?
I made those changes, and the other question was when would they be reinstated? I don't intend to if it's my decision. I think my intent, and I can get into a long explanation if you want me to, but my intent was to really be more inclusive rather than exclusive, and have the experience, which could include a degree, be involved in that whole decision-making process.
Could it include part of a degree? I don't know who's all applied. I mean, obviously I know that Jason has, but I don't know all the other names. I think you shared with me the other day that more than half of the people that applied don't have a degree. Are there some that have degrees that have some hours? I know at Phillips and Company, for instance, some people have to have a degree, but if you have so many hours, we'll look at that too. I mean, I'm assuming you've kind of looked at all of this and making your
Actually,
process.
I haven't looked at it yet. We just closed on Friday, and I do know that there have been 9 applicants. I think of those, 4 have a degree or some type of degree.
Okay.
But I haven't gone through and
your decision to do so has been addressed with the city council in the past. Is that correct? As far as the job description changes and what they are, you addressed that with the council. Is that right?
Probably not. There was a timing.
What you did in an email.
Problem on that. I sent out some information, but not a decision by.
As far as what had been done.
As far as what?
As far as what had been done with the job description.
As far as what had been done with that. And the job description does say that, which is similar to what Columbia has. The language is a little different. In fact, it's my understanding that the Columbia chief didn't have a degree completed when he was hired. I think he may have had an associate's degree. But be that as it may, the experience could be in lieu of a degree. My intent was not to have the degree be the sole screening purpose for that particular position. I take a little bit of exception to the point that an internal candidate, particularly Interim Chief Jason, already has an inside line on that. Quite frankly, I don't think that's the case, and that anybody has the inside line. As I said, I haven't even seen who's applied yet, so I take some exception to that point.
Okay, I appreciate that, and Charles, appreciates you bringing your opinion forward. Any other questions of the council? All right, seeing none, we'll move in. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick.
I'd like Drew to address what our charter says with regard to department heads.
The city code actually, it was revised a couple of months ago, but prior to that had the same language in it that said the fire chief, the old language said the fire chief has the degree or the experience, and that in fact is what's recited in our new, in the new version of the city code. It just is applicable to all. So it's a degree or experience is what the council had set. So Steve really just conformed it to that.
So the description conforms with code, is that what you're trying to say?
I would agree. Now, that's the minimum. Again,
right, understand.
As he put in the degree, it aspires to more, but
right.
Absolutely. Okay. I probably ought to address Mr. Gaskin's concern about the schools and the sprinkler system. At the time those buildings are built, the school district asserted, and it may have been the case at the time they were built, that they didn't need to comply with city code on their construction projects, and it's always an issue. They're a separate political subdivision with a limited amount of money to spend, so we didn't inspect those properties at the time, and I think now the law is fairly. I believe it's clear that political subdivisions would be subject to this our building code, so that may be addressed in the future, but it's always a tension because it costs a lot of money, but the school board is charged with keeping those kids safe and making those decisions too. So,
okay. Any other things from staff or the council? Okay, moving on. I have. Oh, Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah, since we're on the subject of fire chief selection, and I don't know if anybody else can bring it up tonight. Since I asked you earlier, and you guys don't have a selection committee yet. So it's going to be in 2 weeks. You guys bring a committee back before the council for approval. I don't think you might. It's on. It is. It's on.
I think it's my call.
Actually, you need it for TV, or they'll vote you out of office, just like that. Go ahead, Glenn.
Because the charter says any board, commission, or committee appointed has to be approved by the council.
Actually, I'll let Drew weigh in his opinion on that, and then Steve can tell you what his game plan is.
Sure. Any board or commission appointed by the mayor must be approved by the council, and that is correct. However, the on all department heads except me, the city administrator makes a recommendation to the council. So the first one you all get to see is whoever he recommends, and then you give the up or down vote on that. So he actually can appoint some folks to help him if he wants to.
I think what you want to know is the organization of that committee and who's on it, correct?
Well, my concern is that if it's, say, 7 people, at least 3 of them are subject matter professionals.
I believe I can count on my hand. That's for sure been done.
Realize I would not know what questions to ask, and I would not know the difference between a good answer and a better answer
right.
on that subject matter. We need enough of them on there to guide that committee in the right direction.
I think some of the individuals or types of people that Steve has shared with me that he's looking at, I'm very confident that they will be able to do that. And that's coming from a former fireman myself. So, Steve, is there anything else you want to add to this process? I don't know when you plan on making your committee public.
Not really sure what the question is. If it's when public and when I get them all finalized, if it's are there people on there that have some experience, including employees of the fire department, that answers yes. I would think that would be my decision, which I would work with the committee on the process and how they want to go about doing the interview process, whether they want some assessment center, whether they want to do just interviews. I mean, those are things we just haven't had a time to discuss yet with the committee because we haven't had the committee meeting yet. If council wants to be involved in that discussion, then I think we probably need to decide that fairly soon. Mayor and council do get to approve the final selection of that person, but I can't presume to estimate or guess what the committee's decision would be. I don't know. I think that's the process of the committees to go through, make a recommendation to me. I will do a process and make a recommendation to you all, and then you all decide how you want to go about doing that. That's the way that I thought the process worked, but if I'm wrong, then certainly I can amend that.
Drew, that's pretty much how it's worked in the past, is that correct?
Yeah, and I think that's the spirit of the charter, which is, or not the spirit, that's what the charter actually said, which is the city administrator makes a recommendation to the council.
Well, and I think that's why we have a city administrator to administer these hirings, obviously with the council having approval when it comes to the department head level. Any other comments on that or questions? Thanks, Steve. We look forward to seeing that when you get everything finalized. Obviously, can't go in with half a committee, so when you get all that done, please let us know. And Glenn, thanks for the question. Moving on next, I have Alan Mudd. Mr. Mudd, welcome.
Alan Mudd, 3559 Gettysburg Place, and appreciate the chance to bring our concerns forward to the council. Appreciate and can relate to the difficulties of the budget, but we want you to know, I want you to know the ramifications for individuals that I have a lot of contact with. As a realtor, people move to Jefferson City many times if they're up in years or having mobility problems. They want to be on a bus line, they want to have public transportation, and it's important for their quality of life. And if they don't have that, it makes it very, very difficult. Another aspect of my life as a landlord with apartments, many of my tenants rely on public transportation to get to a place of employment. If they are not able to do that, then it makes their life very difficult. So I understand the difficulty you have in terms of meeting the cost of that, but I think we all need to keep in mind the ramifications that that it causes within the community. And if we understand the importance of that, then I think we can work together, hopefully work together to come up with funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Next, I have Mr. Brad Bates. Mr. Bates, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for keeping our city safe with the exotic animals. Thank you very much. I want to speak in favor as well, and I'm probably the least qualified to speak on this matter. I didn't know I was an advocate until actually Dennis Nicholson and I were talking, and he told me that I was an advocate, and that's because I represent a couple medical associations over at the Capitol, and we have physicians and specialists and all these, and a lot of medical students that are in our association. And when they do their rotations and different things at the hospitals here in town, oftentimes we'll get a call and they'll ask a simple question: is there good housing near the hospitals, or can you find me someplace on a bus line? And it's been 25 years since I rode the bus from 7th grade. I just really wasn't aware of some of the issues that were out there until I started looking at, well, no, actually the buses stop at this time, and if you're doing your rotations past 5, it's not going to be feasible. And it really just kind of opened my eyes, and I know we have some financial issues that we would have to look at, and I'm very aware of that. I guess my generation, and Mayor, your generation, we've progressed a little bit, where a lot of folks at our time didn't ride public transportation. But a lot of these younger folks, the younger generation, public transportation is very desirable and it's very acceptable. And I'm not saying it's an economic development tool, but I think it goes a long way in looking at the vibrancy of a community. And when they decide to put roots down, that is something that is of consideration. So I just wanted to make those points that my eyes have been open from a professional standpoint of needs in this area. Dr. Mihailovich likes to tell me that don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. At this point, I just have the problem, but I think forming a committee and looking at different nuances and having everybody come together may be a good step. So be happy to answer any questions.
Brad, I have a question, and not to put you on the spot, but I know you've worked on a lot of community action events and proposals and that type of deal. I know that St. Joe, Missouri was under these same restraints a few years ago. Okay. And they actually passed, and I don't know the exact amount, Mr. Haldeman, if you could not quote me on this. It was either like an 8-cent or 16-cent tax for transportation, for transit. Is that something you think over time our community would do?
Mr. Mayor, if I could read those tea leaves, being involved with transformation and now on the facilities committee with the schools, we're trying to juggle those issues right now. What exactly is the threshold that our community is going to support? I think we've got a very caring community that is probably facing issues that not a lot of us are aware of.
Right.
I wish I could say firsthand that, I think they would, but I think it would be, let's be honest, it would be a struggle because you're going to have to educate folks as to the issues that are out there to begin with. Right. And, hearing the gentleman that runs Colton's, and I also heard from the chicken place right beside it in Lowe's parking lot that I eat at all the time. Chick-fil-A, I apologize.
It's really a national chain, right?
That's right. I don't get out often. Listening to their issues about workers not being able to gain employment simply because of the transportation is something that I'd never really even considered before, and a taxi ride is $20. You would have to educate the community very thoroughly as to the benefits of it, but I think our community is caring, and I think at some point we can figure out some type of solution to the problem.
Brad, I appreciate your involvement in this. Thank you very much. I have Leslie Kearns. Leslie, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leslie Kearns, and I am the Executive Director for the Pregnancy Help Center, and we're located at 1011 Southwest Boulevard. And I'm here to speak in favor of continuing and expanding public transit in Jefferson City. The services of the Pregnancy Help Center are offered free of charge to women with unplanned and crisis pregnancies. We give pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, referrals to other agencies and organizations, counseling, classes, and material assistance. Many of our clients utilize the public transit system to come to and from our center. They would not be able to come to the center to take advantage of these free services if it weren't for public transit. And of course, they use public transportation to get to work, to doctor's appointments, and other places that they need to go besides coming to the center. One of our clients works as a maid in a hotel on the west side of town. She is currently living in a maternity home near the downtown area. Her shift usually includes 1 to 2 days on the weekend, and it is a hardship on her to find a way to work when public transit is not available. Some clients have stopped coming to the center for counseling and for classes because it is so time-consuming and exhausting to wait for bus transfers. It took one lady 2 hours to get from the Rape and Abuse Center to the Pregnancy Center because of limited services, and she stopped coming to her prenatal class and never took any other classes. Maintaining current transportation routes and increasing services would not only help these individual pregnant and new mothers, but it would help the community in total. We not only offer prenatal and parenting classes, but we also offer classes on such things as budgeting and money management and getting a job. As we help these women become productive citizens and effective parents, everyone benefits. These are the individuals that don't have funds to pay for other forms of transportation. They need a convenient, expanded transportation system to help them move their lives forward in a positive way. Please consider forming a committee to further study needs and the benefits to the whole community and to our economic development so that we can be sure of having a progressive transit system that benefits our entire community. While I greatly appreciate the work that the City Council has previously done with transportation, I'm even more excited about what we can do in the future when we work together. Thank you.
Leslie, thank you. Next, I have Mr. Tom Van Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to say thanks for not putting chickens in that exotic animal.
Oops.
Yeah, really. Transportation is an issue that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. As you know, we opened the Chick-fil-A on January 23rd, and I started with 115 employees. And since that day, I've lost 16 employees just due to transportation issues themselves. That comes to around 14%. We still challenge with that simply because I have to adjust schedules because so many employees ride with other employees and they're dependent upon that. Even though within the application process, it clearly states on the application, do you have a viable means of transportation? And it says yes. I know people really want to work, and a lot of the people that I've lost were very good employees. However, their transportation fell apart, whether there's a friend was going to take them or a parent or a car broke down or whatever. So I'm kind of strapped in the sense of if I have these employees that are relying on each other to get to work, if one employee who has the transportation, if they're sick or whatever, I'm immediately down 2 people because I have to schedule them on the exact same time and on the exact same day. In addition to, I can't tell you the number of employees that we have that come in on cabs. And they're constantly asking me if they can work overtime just to pay the cab fare. And so, you know, it's a struggle for me as an employer, and it's much of a struggle for them as employees. But a vibrant transportation system would greatly improve their, I don't want to say their self-wealth, just their confidence, and that they know that they can get to work, and they're not afraid of, if I call in again, am I going to lose my job? And I mean, the excuses that that they come up with to try to prevent that, I can be as lenient as I can to a certain extent. And I just want to say, I've moved here from Atlanta, Georgia, and this is the greatest place I've lived. And I was born and raised in St. Louis, and we're excited about being here. And I think a vibrant transportation system would really do great things for the city. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, sir. And
He didn't bring samples.
Oh, man. I'm on my way there after the meeting, actually.
There you go.
But as an employer, and this is one thing that we're going to have to, as Councilman Scrivener mentioned previously before our break. Now, would Chick-fil-A be willing to contribute to at all as far as any sort of funding? Because what we're going to have to look at is local businesses possibly contributing to possibly expanding any sort of transit services.
Well, I think a couple of things can happen. Number one, I know we had a discussion with some people within our group. Coming from Atlanta, obviously, you're talking a huge city, 5.5 million people just in the Atlanta metro area. You look at the buses there, every single bus is wrapped. I mean, wrapped with advertisements everywhere. I know from a couple other organizations, and we've done it too as a business. That helps fund these buses. That helps fund the employees. That helps pay for the gas or the natural gas or whatever they're on now. There's a lot of different things, plus signage on the side, and there's all kinds of options I think that can be out there to help fund these things. But there's got to be some way in which, from a business side, I always say, well, I got to spend money to make money, but I've got to take the risk of spending the money to see if there's actually a reward at the end. And with this system, I know there's ways in which things can be brought into it. I mean, I was on my way over here today, and I saw 2 buses drive by or go by me. They had no advertising on it. None. I mean, just the simplest of a sign, on the side. And I was on the side of it, and then I went behind it, and there was no advertising. So I think that, that's an opportunity right there. It's a small one, but it's still an opportunity. It's some type of revenue. And as far as what the business communities can do, we're always willing to help.
Did we get a couple new buses by chance, man, that don't have signage yet?
We actually contract with a company to sell that signage to businesses, and they market it as well. And so
most of them had it. I hadn't seen one without it yet. So, but
yeah,
we did start that.
It's not
3 years
when
ago.
You buy a sign, it's not on every bus per se, but it's kind of up to how much the business pays, really. And so we do have availability of that advertising. They might, we have had nobody take us up on the full wrap, but there's other things that they have done. Generate some income though for the system.
Bob.
I'm very glad to see you here tonight, and Mr. Ward earlier. In previous meetings with Ashley and some of her group, I encouraged her to contact the employers of people that utilize the transportation system, as well as the medical community. I guess perhaps Mr. Bates was representing them, because those are, their clients use the medical facilities that use transportation. So we're starting to have that citywide conversation that I envisioned a year ago whenever when we talked about it before, to try to increase awareness of people who are not necessarily using the transportation system, and how important that system is. So I think this is very useful and very good that you're here tonight. But I've heard, and we will continue to hear people advocate for a group, an advisory group. But each time I hear someone say that, I can't help but wonder, unless the advice advises us to how we're going to come up with additional money, I'm not sure how it'll be anything other than just a group that continues to ask for additional services that that we can't fund.
Well, I mean, I completely understand it, but through the dialogue between the committee and the council here, I think there's solutions out there that are available. I mean, I really do. Whether it be, let's go out to the business community, let's see what they're willing to do. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, if it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, and we can almost guarantee you, because there's a stop right down the street, right there in Lowe's parking lot, we can guarantee you people are going to be here. We're going to guarantee you your employees are going to be there to ride. You're going to be there. There's going to be a ride there for your employees to go home. To me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, it really is.
And if that's the kind of thing that we can expect from a group such as this, then that would be, no doubt, that would be useful.
I know we've talked a lot about it, and And it's just getting out to the business community, because I think a lot of them, they take for granted that the bus system's there.
Right.
They don't know, I think some of the business, they don't know the pros and the cons. You know, prior to me even coming here and building a store, I sat down with my real estate person and I asked them about the transportation system. And they said, yeah, they've got one. They got one. There's actually one right on Lowe's. And that wasn't going to deter me too much of coming here, but it's a factor. It's a factor only from the sense of employees. You know, I mean, everywhere I've owned Chick-fil-A's for 20 years. And everywhere I've been, transportation was a huge issue for employees. You know, and I think it's a very solvable situation here.
Well, I mean it. I'm very glad that you're involved. I'm glad that you came. I'm glad that you are speaking up. I hope you will encourage other business people to see the value of the transit system.
I definitely will.
Offer to support it as you have.
I'm here.
All right, thanks.
All right, Tom, there's one part of this meeting we weren't going to do, but you have to come forward.
Uh-oh.
Do you have any idea how long this capital city has wanted a Chick-fil-A?
I can't even imagine.
Well, due to that, you get a city coin.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for being a newcomer and being here tonight. I think it's obviously something we all want to try to work on together.
More chicken.
All right. Dennis Nicholson. Good to go. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone have a question? Oh, Drew?
I was just going to mention, for the folks that end up coming to the meetings and for the council also, it's never as simple as picking a spot to go to for a bus stop. As you probably are all shocked to hear this, but with the federal government comes heavy regulations. And so for every adjustment you make, you have to make another adjustment somewhere else. And it has a lot to do with serving under privileged folks as well. And there's actually already a committee required by the federal government that deals with routes. So while it's always okay to have input on it, that committee is the one that the federal government's dictated the discussion has to go to. And doesn't mean you can't have a pre-committee, but it's just never as easy as saying, well, you know what would be great? A route that goes to Chick-fil-A, because I'd be on that one. But it's just not that easy, and you're going to have to get somebody in when that discussion happens who really is an expert on it. And we generally utilize Richard Turner for that kind of stuff.
Right. And obviously, Drew, Janice, Matt, as you all know, and I don't know if everyone in the room knows, Janice, you always gave the best explanation. Explain Handy Wheels and how that works directly with the transit system, because the number that we're looking at here includes Handy Wheels.
It does. Handy Wheels is offered as a complimentary service to a fixed route system. So you can't operate a Handy Wheels service by itself. It comes along with the fixed route service.
And it's basically the same areas. Is that correct, or is it's just citywide, right?
Federal law dictates where those services can be provided. Generally, Handy Wheel services are provided within the city limits.
Okay. Any other questions for Janice on that? Okay. Next, Mr. Mitchell. Did Brian make it? I think he may have had another meeting. We understand his busy schedule, and we do appreciate meeting with him. Matter of fact, City Administrator Kroll and I think, have a meeting with him next week for lunch. We'll be talking more about this then. Robin Jones. Thank you, Ms. Jones, for being here.
Thank you. My name is Robin Jones, and I live at 422 Hickory Street. I am, amongst other things, I am a Lincoln student. I'm also a CASA volunteer. If you don't know what that is, it's court-appointed special advocate. Our purpose is to speak up for the best interests of abused and neglected children in courts and communities. I have worked in numerous families that rely on the bus transit system. One of the families I'm helping, she's a single mom of 3. She is at the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. I'm sorry. Thanks, Vicki. She relies on the public transit system for all her activities. She is working and is trying to get back on her feet. Her biggest issue, and has been in the past, is transportation. She walks everywhere with her 3 children, and on the weekends she cannot afford taxis to go places. If there was a vibrant transportation system, this family could be able This family could have the sense of community, neighborhood-based recreational opportunities, and sustainable employment. I am asking the City Council tonight to establish a public transit advisory committee. The advisory committee can advise the City Council and staff on an ongoing basis with regards to transit policy and safety matters concerning transit issues affecting the City of Jefferson City. Thank you.
Thank you. And Drew, for the record, I think we actually do have a transit committee now as part of JeffTran, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That was kind of the committee I referenced before.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going. Brian Kaler? Oh, I'm sorry. I have one ahead of you, Brian. Sorry, sir. No, go ahead. You're first.
Brian Kaler, 3725 Scarborough Way. And I am both an old and new resident of the city of Jefferson. I grew up here, graduated from high school here, then moved away, moved back about 2 weeks ago, slept in our house for the first time last night. And I took a break from unloading boxes because I do think that the issue of public transportation is very important. And that is why I'm here this evening, because we moved back to Missouri and specifically chose Jefferson City because we thought this is a place where we wanted to raise our family. 2-year-old son, we want to be closer to family, and we think this is a good community. But at the same time, we have to continue to make sure we make the community even better for all people. And that's one of the reasons why I think we do need to continue to push forward to have a more vibrant transportation system. I come at this from two different perspectives. I've been a Baptist pastor for a few years, not recently, but I was for a few years. I work for a Baptist organization. And so I have that kind of moral teaching background. But on the flip side, I've taught the last 6 years at a state school in Virginia, named for the father of our Constitution, James Madison. And I taught political communication there. And from these two perspectives, I see the same basic fundamental goal of government, particularly local government, which is that which is closest to the people. And that is this idea of helping to build up the community for everyone. And I'm afraid that right now we have a public transportation system that doesn't quite live up to that full moral teaching or our basic democratic principles. And having spent the last 6 years literally walking in the land that James Madison and Thomas Jefferson walked on, and continuing to be inspired by their teachings and their ideas of this democratic experiment, I think it's important to make sure that we realize that we don't start the topic of discussion at the issue of funding. That's important. It has to be considered before we make a decision, before we move forward on a policy. But that's not where we start. Where we start is what must be done. What is it that government needs to be doing? What is it that a community needs? And then we find the funding to make that possible. And so as we continue to move forward, whether it's with the committee, whether it's with the council here as a whole, that I think it's important that we continue to look for how can we build a better, more vibrant, more effective public transportation system that lives up to these basic principles of what we're trying to accomplish in this community. And I just moved here from a community about the same size, and I'm actually really surprised how more restrictions and less options there are with the public transportation system here compared to that same community in Virginia that's nearly identical in size, is sprawled out very similarly, and they have a transportation system that is running constantly. And as a citizen, yes, I would be willing to spend more in revenue or increases in what it takes to make this community what it needs to be. And I hope that the council would help push and educate and take the leadership on this issue, because that would make a difference in the public discussion. I'll take any questions.
Thanks. Welcome back. Next, I have Mr. Brian Wiecamp. Welcome, Brian. I know Brian went to school here in town because I think we may have graduated together.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, Brian Wiecamp, 1125 Linden Court. I'll just kind of briefly mention what other people mentioned, how vitally important the transit system is to us who don't drive for whatever reason. I use both the fixed route and handy wheel service for my daily needs. One of them is going to and from work. Without that, it would be a really hardship, and I would just encourage the council to establish a advisory committee to just do a variety of things, maybe get additional funding and to maintain the current service too. And I know it's a big challenge and there's a lot of stuff to cover, but I think all of us working together, we can get it done. Thank you.
Brian, thank you for being here tonight. Good seeing you, sir. Next, I have Ganeely. Is that correct? Is there a Ganeely Mabella here? And Phyllis and I worked on how to pronounce that first name. Okay, can you at least tell her we got it right? Okay, last but not, I think that's it on my list, unless there's anyone else that didn't sign up or did sign up. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Okay, and you'll be the last one. Appreciate everyone taking their patience tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown. You'll be the second to last one. Yes, ma'am. You have to do it at the microphone so the people watching in TV land can see it. Otherwise, it doesn't happen, is what the guys behind the control booth tell me.
My name is Mary Kabiri, 1830 Saratoga Boulevard is where I live. I actually just want to speak from an average citizen that last week I rode the bus. I didn't even know this meeting was, till later in the day, I didn't even know this meeting was being called. And I rode the bus with some friends just for the experience of doing it. I went with some friends who take it frequently. We went out to from the employment security stop to Walmart, went to Hibachi Grill to Walmart, got back on, and rode back home. I think there might just be even some practical things that could be thought about. One thing, I thought perhaps things have changed, I think. The Walmart used to be a stop, but now it's down in the middle, in that road that goes between Walmart and Menards. I'm not sure what the street is. I think there's a long walk from that stop to Walmart, a long walk to Menards. I said, well, what about people who really can't make that walk but would ride the bus? And somebody said, well, they just can use Handy Wheels. But Handy Wheels, I know, is overloaded. I know that because I have ridden it as an attendant with a friend I have who's in a wheelchair. And I know it can be an hour for them to pick you back up when you call because they have so many people that they have to do. Perhaps a few more stops would allow people to ride the bus more that otherwise would have to take Handy Wheels. Perhaps there are a few practical things like that. Perhaps we could see what other cities are doing for funding. I know our manager of Chick-fil-A mentioned one thing, but there might be other things too. Has that ever been investigated? What is, for example, is Columbia? But not only Columbia. I mean, we don't have to use Columbia as our standard all the time for everything, but might investigate that. There just might be some ways that would save a little bit of money, and it wouldn't solve the whole problem, but it might allow a little more extension. The ride was very pleasant. I mean, I could say nothing about the ride. It was on time. The bus is clean. The bus was cool. The driver was very polite and very helpful. The people riding the bus were considerate of each other. When they saw me get on, one man immediately stood up and said, I'll go to the back so you can sit here. I talked to some regular riders while I was on it, asking how they felt about it. They like the bus. They're very appreciative of it. So I suppose there could be something that occurs occasionally. I have heard occasionally there's an uncooperative passenger who doesn't want to sit in the right spot or something. But I don't think that's a major problem with the bus system.
All right. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Last on the list, not last in our city, obviously, but last on the list is Mr. Arthur Brown, representing the 5th Ward, normally. Arthur, welcome, sir.
Good evening. I hadn't intended on speaking tonight. I've been listening to the people on this transit. When I came in the door, they said, here, put this on. So just as some food for thought. The city obviously is in a bind. The people have a need. Is there a possibility for outside services? Is there, does it just have to be citywide? Could it be a contract service that would do weekends, after hours? Is that something that the city might look at? If there is a possibility of outside services, maybe there might be a entity that would approach the city with a service for after hours and weekends. Just food for thought. Is it just locked down with the city, or could it be opened up?
Arthur, I can answer that for you on behalf of the council, myself, and staff. I think any rock can be unturned at this time, and I think that's probably our largest issue, is that we've tried to keep it as is and try to keep it funded. One thing that we didn't bring up tonight, and we'll find out more about this, because one thing I would like for Steve to add to his thing for on the 30th is that we get a history of what Jeff Tran has been. We simply forget that for a long time we had, I'm going to guess here, $70,000+ $80,000, $100,000 from the state. What was that number, Janice? More? Like how much? We actually had state workers that were riding the shuttle, were riding the bus on a daily basis and parking across the river and other parts of town. And the state cut that out years ago. But at the same time, we didn't stop services. We still provide most of those services we did back then. So, yeah. But any rock needs to be unturned. It's obviously it's a major issue. And
what made me stop and think? You have this Greyhound service now that comes through here.
Right.
Same out at Gerbs on the East End they pick up, and that's independent of the city that provides a service. It's just.
And I'm not sure, Mr. Brown. There may be, and I don't know this for sure. There may be an outside. There could be an outside provider.
We may go into bus business.
What's that?
I said maybe we'll get our family go into bus business.
Well, there's nothing to say that the city has to provide. I mean, the city can help support it, but it doesn't mean that it has to be completely ran by the city. So, like I say, I think we're open to. I think we're open to everything.
Okay.
But the big thing is there are a lot of things, a lot of rules that have to be followed, as Janice said earlier, as far as federal funding and that kind of thing. But
just food for thought.
Thank you very much, sir. And I haven't forgotten that you owe me a fishing trip too. Okay, guys, that's all we have tonight on number 15.
I just want to make a quick comment.
Can you hold on just a second? Can you hold on a second? That's all the speakers we have from the audience tonight under number 15. Bob.
I think at one time the public transit system wasn't a public transit. I mean, it was public, but it was owned by a private entity. I think the city took it over at some point in time. So in the history of Jefferson City, it was totally owned by private enterprise. So, Mr. Brown, I would welcome your bid. I'm sure you could get the votes to purchase it.
And I'm just going to say this because this is something that was talked about years ago. There was some talk about subsidizing the cab company or contracting with the cab company to provide the services that people need too. So a lot of different options on the table, so to speak. Steve, appreciate your leadership. Appreciate you stepping up to the plate, and along with myself and the council. This will not be easy to do. It's going to be we're going to roll up our sleeves and find every nook and cranny that we can to try to make it done. And it wouldn't surprise me, Steve, at the end of the rainbow, we have to bring in some outside resources, some outside consultant or something to help us know what our system really needs to be. This group might be able to help us decide on what they want it to be, but coming up with that funding and all that above, I know our current study is probably about, I think it's getting ready to have its sixth birthday, if not its seventh. Okay, that's everything I see under number 15. Council discussion of presentation topics, number 16. Okay. Any new business tonight? Any old business tonight? Or I'm sorry, we call it unfinished business. Used to be old business in the JCs. Okay, at this point in time, the council will entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Section 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri to talk about real estate subsection 2. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Branch.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Costello.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're going to do something different tonight. We are going to stay in here, and we'll ask that the public leave, and we'll just close the door and hit this right quick. We'll be on our way. Thank you guys very much for your input, and we'll see more of you in the months to come.